Next, I want to talk to you about using sociometry, psychodrama, and sociodrama within organizational settings. So, if you're not familiar with sociometry, psychodrama, sociodrama, I really encourage you to check out some of the other videos on this channel, particularly related to the earlier chapters in the book, or check out some of my other work to familiarize yourself with these processes. I'm not going to really go over what exactly they mean in this video in much detail, so it would be important to go check out those videos, read up about it, and then come back to this video. So, implementing sociometry, psychodrama, and sociodrama within our organizations provides us with an avenue for cultivating peer support, engaging in experiential learning, prompting self-care, increasing organizational cohesion, and providing psychodrama trainings or trainings that are using experiential teaching methods are simply much more engaging than providing a training that's based on lecture or PowerPoint. The provision of psychodrama or experiential trainings within an agency seems to directly or indirectly address each of the 5 recommendations that were outlined earlier in the 2017 study about reducing burnout and secondary traumatic stress. So those 5 areas were supervision, peer support, reducing and rotating direct service hours, providing trauma training and education, and providing avenues for personal growth or counseling. So in some direct or indirect way, each of these 5 areas can be addressed through providing psychodrama trainings within your agency. Psychodrama training is a bit different than other trainings in that it often involves some personal growth and participants doing some of their own personal work within the training through demonstrations. There's ways that in psychodrama sessions and psychodrama warm-ups and sociometry processes, while we're teaching content, we're also challenging individuals to reflect on their work and engage in peer support and peer supervision, or through questions, engage in supervision related to their client interactions. Of course, providing psychodrama training is directly providing training and education. And the very nature of providing a training within your agency means that you're reducing and rotating direct service hours because the individuals are attending the training instead of providing services. So there's lots of secondary good reasons for bringing a psychodrama training to your organization. Historically, psychodrama has been used, sociometry has been used in various organizations, various industries, in government agencies, and all branches of the military. The founder of psychodrama, Jacob Moreno, one of his first jobs after completing his medical degree in Vienna was that he worked as the chief physician of a fabric factory in Austria and was the public health officer of the town. So and this is going back over 100 years ago now. So his ideas about well-being and mental health and group dynamics were implemented within organizations pretty early on in his work. Now, there's various different examples from my own work of implementing sociometry, psychodrama, role-playing sociodrama in various organizations that I've consulted with or provided training in. And I wanted to offer you just some of those examples, and these are some of which are things that you can bring back to your organizations. In terms of sociometry, one of the simple examples is using spectrograms related to self-care, burnout, and vicarious trauma or vicarious growth. So more recently, I've been being called and invited and hired to provide trainings on vicarious trauma and burnout quite frequently. It seems like it's really prevalent in our professional community lately and really needed. So there's a series of spectrograms I often use in some sort of variation of which involves first asking, how consistent are you in engaging in your own self-care? And I ask individuals to line up on a spectrum within the room. that wall representing one end of the spectrum, this wall representing the other end of the spectrum. So from 1 to 10, perhaps. How consistent are you in engaging in self-care? And we get everyone lined up on a spectrogram. And then we can promote sharing and discussion about the things we do well in terms of self-care and the things that are limiting us in terms of implementing more self-care. Then I might ask another spectrogram question. 1 to 10, how often do you feel burnout or secondary trauma or overwhelming stress related to the work that you do? And then we get everyone, again, on this spectrogram, reflecting on their experience and then discussing their experience with their peers, normalizing their experience, getting peer support with each other about it. And then I might end with the third prompt. Maybe how much would you say the work has prompted you to grow as a person, as a professional? And everyone would line up again and reflect on their vicarious growth from their work. If you wanted to learn more about spectrograms, I encourage you to check out some of the other videos on this channel where I cover spectrograms in depth and even demonstrate them with a group. Another example of an experiential exercise in organizational setting is the use of circle of strengths exercise. This is where I would use props, usually a collection of fabrics and scarves, for the exercise, and the team, the professionals, would stand in a circle around the pile of scarves, and I would ask them to choose a scarf that could symbolize a strength that they see in the person to their right. And then I would facilitate a group process of individually presenting that strength to the person to your right and the rest of the group bearing witness to that. And then we might go to the left the next time and everyone would present another strength to somebody else. We could even be more specific and ask them to choose a strength that can help them manage burnout and grow from their work. This gives everyone an opportunity to see how others in their department or in their organization experience them. And it really becomes a heartwarming experience to receive a strength and hear how somebody sees you embody that strength, sees the positive qualities within yourself. It's often something that many people struggle to see within themselves is their goodness. This exercise can be modified in different ways. You could ask group members to choose a scarf to represent a strength within the entire group, within the organization, within the clients they work with, or the modalities they use. Regardless, this exercise ends up being a really vulnerable and uplifting process. It provides everyone with an avenue for practicing vulnerability with each other based on positive criteria and really honoring the contributions of each other on the team. Many times I'll demonstrate this in a treatment team and teach how they can use it with their clients, but I'll later get feedback from the leader of the organization that the experience of participating in that seemed to enhance the cohesion of the organization or the team or the department in a way that was really meaningful. And I've even gotten feedback from some clinical directors or executive directors that the cost of the training day was worth it just for that exercise and how meaningful it was for staff to participate in that together. If you wanted to learn more about that exercise, the Circle of Strengths, I encourage you to check out some of the other videos on this channel that demonstrate and provide a more comprehensive overview to facilitating this exercise. Another sociometry tool that I often use in organizations related to trauma-informed care is a floor check. And this is where I would take a topic that has subtopics and I would print out those subtopics, those options, and I would put them throughout the floor, and I would ask a series of questions to the group, and with each question, invite them to come physically stand at the option, the piece of paper, that answers the question for them. So, for example, if I'm doing a consultation with an organization about trauma-informed care, I am likely to print out the 6 trauma-informed care principles and put them throughout the room, and then ask a series of questions Which principle do you feel you most embody in your work as an individual? Which principle do you feel you have the most room to grow in your work? Which principle do you feel your organization has the most room to grow in? Which principle do you feel your organization is doing the best job of embodying already? Which principle do you feel you and your team have grown in the past year? There's a variety of questions you could ask. Each will result in new configuration of staff members standing at different principles in different clusters, and you can initiate some short sharing, either at the group level, let's hear why people chose the principle they chose, or in small groups, where you're promoting self-reflection and peer support and mutual aid within the organization. This also provides a group as a whole assessment for you and for the organization. With each question, you can take a step back and look at, where did people choose to stand or not stand? Which of these principles does the staff think we're doing the best job with or the worst job with? And that can be really helpful for organizational assessments for trauma-informed care. So lots of different ways you can modify floor checks for use in trainings and therapy groups and community groups. If you wanted to learn more about that, I would encourage you to check out some of the other videos on this channel. There's another teaching video where we demonstrate the use of floor checks. I think the example we used was a feeling floor check, where we put different feelings out and had people stand at the feeling that answered the question for them. Which feeling do you experience today? Which feeling do you most try to avoid? Which feeling is hard for you to tolerate in somebody else? Which feeling have you gotten better at managing for yourself? And so on. So beyond sociometry, there's also different role-playing exercises that can be really useful in organizations. And I wanted to share just a couple examples from my own work of how I've implemented role-playing within different organizations. So one I sometimes call is supervision in action, where I'll come to an organization. Usually this is an organization that I'm providing ongoing consultation and training to, and I'll invite them to reflect on examples of difficult interactions with their clients or residents. And we'll collectively choose an example, and then we'll choose people to play the roles of the people in that example, and we'll role play it. So this was an exercise that a residential treatment organization that I've provided ongoing training to really appreciated. So we had done it a couple times there. One of the examples that came up was the struggle between staff and residents about getting residents out of bed on time and making their bed and getting ready for the day, and how it often turned into a power struggle between the staff member and the resident that didn't want to get out of bed. So we role played this by having staff member play the role of the resident and play the role of the staff member. And we reenacted it. And then we paused it, and I used a psychodrama intervention called doubling, where either myself or others in the group come and stand next to one of the roles and offer a statement that might express what's going on just beneath the surface for either individual in the interaction. A feeling, a thought, or something that labels the deeper experience that's being had. Something that's unspoken. Something that's unexpressed. And so we took turns and we came and we doubled for the staff member. And they said things like, "I'm just so angry at having to do this as part of my job." Or, "So frustrating that this person never wants to get out of bed." Or, "I have so much things to do today. The last thing I need to do is to be here trying to get a grown man out of bed this morning." Or, "I'm feeling really ineffective in that I can't motivate this person to get out of bed." So we doubled for the staff member. Then we came and we doubled for the resident. What might the resident be feeling or thinking in this moment? And statements such as, "I feel hopeless," or I'm feeling really depressed," or "I'm not sure that I have any reason to get out of bed," or "I can't stand it when somebody's telling me when I have to get up, or even being in a recovery house or a treatment center and being yelled at to get out of bed reminds me of my abusive father yelling at me in my bedroom. These doubling statements really help humanize everyone involved and help deepen our understanding of what could be going on, some of the underlying processes, feelings that are impacting the behavior. After the doubling, then we go into what's called role training. And this is where I would invite the other participants to step into the role of the staff member and to practice rehearsing new responses to the resident who doesn't want to get out of bed. And everyone can even have a chance to step into the role of staff member for a minute, 30 seconds, and to demonstrate with their own style, with their own unique approach, how they might try to motivate that staff member to get out of bed. And then this provides the group with a really rich experiential learning process, in that if there's 10 or 20 people in the training, we get to see 10 or 20 different styles, different approaches for the same circumstances. And it gives everyone a chance to learn from each other. This is also an exercise that can be used for exploring transference and countertransference in relationships, in that we might reenact a difficult situation and then pause it, do the same doubling, and then reflect on if there's transference or countertransference going on. Who is it that the client is transferring onto the staff member, and who is it that the staff member is transferring onto the client? And we can even choose people to play those roles, and it can evolve into a deeper role play for the purposes of self-awareness, for trying to renegotiate projections and countertransference on the clients we're working with, and also for engaging in our own healing about the source of our projections or countertransference. Another place where I used this was in a supervision group in a treatment center. And the situation was about how to provide interventions for clients who don't want to be in treatment anymore and who have decided they want to end their treatment and leave residential treatment against medical advice. And so we had somebody role play as the client saying they want to leave treatment, and somebody role playing as the therapist or the professional trying to intervene and talk to this client, motivate them to stay. And so we used that same doubling and role training interventions, and it became a really rich experience. And again, we got to see 20 different therapists each take a moment and step into the role of therapist and demonstrate with their own style, with their own theoretical backgrounds, with their own personality, how they might motivate somebody to try to stay in treatment. That experience was so rich, I still talk about it. It was probably 7 to 8 years ago, and I still think about it at times. So lots of different ways we can use role-playing within organizations to help troubleshoot different situations. I even use smaller role plays to help staff members practice difficult conversations with their clients or customers, or help supervisors practice difficult conversations with their supervisees, or to help leaders practice difficult conversations. Another psychodramatic process that I often use is a multiple empty chair process. And this can be modified for different circumstances, different themes. On the theme of burnout and vicarious trauma, I might pull out 2 empty chairs, one to represent the therapist or professional, the other to represent the client. And I'll provide a little bit of context. I might start by saying, in this first scenario, the professional, the therapist, is really struggling with burnout and vicarious trauma while trying to provide services to this client. Then I'll invite participants to come and sit in either one of the chairs for just a moment, one at a time, and to offer a statement, almost like a doubling statement, about what either party might be thinking or feeling. So somebody might come and sit in the chair of the therapist and say, "Man, I'm just exhausted. I don't know how I'm possibly going to be able to help the person in front of me." Or someone might come sit in the chair of the client and say, "Man, this therapist is boring. is not very engaging and just seems distracted. I don't think they can really help me. And so on. And we might have 5 or 10 different people come and sit in each chair and offer one statement, just articulating what could be going on for either one of these roles. And then I'll switch it and say, now this is a therapist who's engaged in their own self-care and supervision and training and is well balanced and fully present for the client. And now let's do the same process, but with this new scenario. And you end up with very different statements that are being said from each of the roles. So this is a simple, sometimes fun and funny exercise using sociodrama rather than psychodrama, because it's not somebody's actual specific story. It's just a collective story with collective roles. And it's an exercise that allows us to interface with and engage with the roles of client and therapist and the phenomenon of burnout. It can really help us normalize our experiences and be more aware of our experiences and how it impacts the client. Similarly, I've used this exercise when teaching about trauma-informed care by putting out 3 chairs, one for the client, one for the staff, and one for the leadership. And I do a similar process of asking individuals to come and make a statement from any of the roles, just one statement, and then they sit down related to different circumstances. I might say, in an organization that's not so trauma-informed, what are the things that each of these roles might be thinking or feeling or doing? And people might come and step into them and make different statements. And then I switch it at some point and end with the positive. In an organization where the staff and the leadership are implementing trauma-informed care, what might the client, staff, and leadership be feeling, thinking, and doing? And again, people would come, step into the chair for a moment, make a statement, and then go sit down. So this can be really a cathartic experience and a fun experience, and also a really meaningful learning experience about how the presence or lack of presence of trauma-informed care can really impact staff, clients, and leaders. Now, if I were to use psychodrama in its more complete form in an organization, I could certainly do full psychodramas in training groups or organizational groups to work through stressors or conflict or other issues to support the staff in their own personal and professional growth. For example, I often will do strength-based psychodramas in organizational training groups on psychodrama related to overcoming professional barriers or issues. So if a therapist is struggling with confidence in their work, we might do a psychodrama with them and give them the opportunity to connect with different strengths and different roles or mentors or even a higher power that can help them with a sense of confidence. And they'll have the opportunity to talk to these different roles and to reverse roles and become their courage, to become their mentor, to become their higher power, and speak to themselves from those roles about confidence in their work. So this can be really therapeutic and provide an avenue for engaging in personal and professional growth within a training setting. I've also used it for staff members when they're struggling with conflict with a colleague or with a supervisor or with a client. We can have them enact that conflict in the psychodrama and then explore ways of resolving that conflict. I've even used psychodrama for myself related to workplace issues, about having a psychodrama with a leader of an organization, trying to advocate for change within the organization, or practicing negotiating for a salary increase or a new contract to teach at an organization. I might do a short psychodrama and reverse roles with the leader and consider what the leader might need to hear in order to hire me or to increase a salary. So psychodrama can be used for lots of different things in organizations. Another memorable experience was I had a staff member that was struggling to pass their license exam for their license to practice. And they had failed it and they were really anxious about it. And so we did a psychodrama where they had a conversation with the licensing exam and they spoke to it and they looked at their relationship to the licensing exam. and they reversed roles with it and spoke to themselves about what their purpose was and how they could have a better relationship with this license exam that they needed to pass. This was a very fun and even a humorous, very funny psychodrama at times, but also really meaningful in that many people could relate to the anxiety of test taking, but it really humanized the test and gave individuals the opportunity to interact with it and change their relationship with it, to befriend it rather than to be afraid of it. And interestingly, maybe coincidentally or not, the therapist who was the protagonist of that psychodrama emailed me a couple months later and said they passed their license exam on their next attempt after that psychodrama. So lots of creative ways we can use psychodrama within an organization. So again, psychodrama, sociometry, experiential teaching can be used in organizations, not just to provide training on trauma or psychodrama, but also as a teaching method for providing training on trauma-informed care, for helping staff members address burnout and vicarious trauma, and promoting vicarious post-traumatic growth. Really, any topic, any content can be put into sociometry and psychodrama structures, role-playing structures, so that the sociometry and role-playing becomes the experiential teaching method that's being used to teach any particular content. So it's really versatile. Providing sociometry psychodrama training at your organization, however, offers engaging avenues to engage in peer support, in self-care, and in learning while providing new skills to your staff. So there's lots of good reasons to consider bringing psychodrama training to your organization. And if you wanted to learn more about that, I encourage you to reach out to me. I often provide training at different treatment centers, universities, community groups, conferences, international settings. And would really invite an opportunity for a discussion to talk about how psychodrama or trauma-informed care, or even workshops on vicarious trauma and burnout and vicarious post-traumatic growth could benefit you and your organization. So if you found this video useful, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel to receive updates about future videos. Leave a comment below and tell us what specifically you found most interesting or most helpful, and look forward to hearing from you.